Hello, 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 hello. Today I am just doing the edges of these paintings. So quite often I paint the edges of a painting black, and that's something that I've been doing recently, well, for a while actually. And artists do different things. So sometimes people might ignore the edges and then keep them just the colour of the canvas, which often canvases are white. Sometimes you get canvases that are black, so they might stay like that. Sometimes people paint the canvas to match the colour of their art. So if they've got a bit of red there, then we would paint a bit of red going into the edge of the canvas. And some people kind of paint it all just one block colour that might stand out. But I quite like doing the black because I like using bright colours, and when I use black, it like a solid colour would work, but I think using black gives a bit of consistency and makes those colours pop out. It feels good for the colours to pop out. And so last night I was almost close to finishing these paintings, and I then got a bit excited. I had a full day, a really energetic day, where I was out in nature, out in the sun and running around, and just high energy day. And so coming back to make art, I needed to maybe do something that matched that energy, that high energy. So rather than doing like a really neat bit of art on this, I felt that intuitive call to do that pouring paint in certain areas of these paintings. And I've got 4 paintings on the go at the same time, which I do quite often. So there's this one, which another one where you can see from different angles depending on what feels like it works. We've got that one, and then there's another 2 in front of me, but I can't quite reach. And so they all have different amounts of gold, silver and yellow as the pouring paint mix. So what I typically do when I'm like pouring paint on is that I've got like these tiny little gold, that's the silver one, tiny little silver pots, it's acrylic, and then mix in some pouring medium. So, and sometimes it's just, there's a magic to getting the consistency right. I don't measure or anything like that. It tends to be just what I think I need the thickness to be like. So some people would have these exact formulas for how much pouring medium to paint, and how then much activating stuff to go into it, because there's like there's this silicone stuff that goes on it as well, silicone oil, and that helps to create different effects as well, shall we say. So when I added the pouring paint, I was just enjoying that and allowing it to flow, and allowing some of the blocks of colour to come through, like those blocks of colour to stay rather than covering the whole lot. And so waking up the next morning and seeing it, and seeing that I'd scraped away certain areas, and seeing that some of the colours were brighter than the others. Some I've got a lot of silver on one of these, and you can get that when making art. It can feel a little bit like having a hangover, I suppose, and waking up the next day to see like the aftermath of a night out, and to maybe imagine that vulnerability hangover where you've overshared something, or you maybe worry about what you might have done. And actually when somebody feels confident about their art practice and is enjoying making art and in flow, then they're not going to they might wake up and go, oh, I like it or I don't like it. But it's not necessarily going to affect how they feel internally, how they judge themselves. Whereas if someone has a lot of self-doubt about their art, they might look at the art the next day and think, oh, goodness me, I've just wrecked it. And they might feel a lot of shame about themselves. And they might feel a lot of negativity towards themselves, like that they've spoilt it, and find it hard to sort of come back from that. But because I've had years of experience creating art, and I used to be an art teacher and like years of being an art therapist as well, I've learnt and experienced what it's like to do something that looks a mess or I'm not happy with. And sometimes it's valid to not like your artwork. There may be art that you don't like and there may be art that you love. You can look at things and you're like, wow. But there's also the difference, I would say, is being able to make something that your self-worth isn't impacted based on the quality of your artwork. So if you can make art and it's just create, be prolific in how much you're creating. And if something goes wrong, reframe it, rather than saying something's gone wrong, this is just a mess, rather than saying, well, actually, it's not as I planned. And there's a magic to that. There's a real special quality to that. I'm learning a lot as I go along. Even though it's not as I planned, I'm actually learning a lot about my art and about myself as I'm going along. And as Bob Ross says, the artist Bob Ross, he would always talk about happy accidents. And I remember my art teacher would say that, and I didn't really know who Bob Ross was at the time. But if something didn't go according to plan, then maybe if you smudged something or you'd drawn something in like the wrong place or some of the paint's dripped, then we consider that a happy accident. Instead of feeling that it's been a complete disaster and you've spoilt your artwork, see what you can make from it. And it's a really good message for life generally, I would say, that see what you can make from those happy accidents. And not everything's happy, of course. We can have some really sad experiences or some really scary experiences, but it's seeing like what you can learn from those things and helping yourself to manage those emotions and to work through those different things. So that's one edge of the canvas done. I may well paint the back as well, but it needs a little bit of something done. And this piece isn't necessarily finished on the front. It's just I wanted to paint the edges because they were well and truly splattered. A bit too much splat, really, I think. But we'll get this edge done. And paint everywhere. And that's good for now.